American University in Bulgaria.
It's my real pleasure. It's my second time here at the university. I've been, how many years ago?
Maybe 5-6 years ago.
5-6 years ago, but students change, so you haven't been there.
I'll tell you. You talk about identity theft or something like that.
We'll talk about similar things today because, unfortunately, the fraud models, they don't change every day. The techniques change. The complexity changes, but the type of attacks are still the same. So before I start, I'll say a few words about the International Cyber Investigation Training Academy. This is a non-governmental organization that we founded now, I usually say 2 years ago, but time is passing so fast, so now it's 5 years ago. The people who we founded the academy are professionals in the cybersecurity business. I'm a lawyer, and I'm the lawyer in the group. So, do you know any lawyers' jokes? My favorite is, do you know what is the difference between a woman lawyer and a pit bull? The lipstick. So I have no lipstick today. And it's good that we have some distance here in the room. Now, joke aside, my background is in e-business platforms. I work for eBay, and I was responsible for security in Europe for 5 years. I also teach at the university in France, in the technical university. I teach ICT security and internet law. But today, one thing we will not talk about is law, so don't worry about that. The other people, my colleagues with whom we founded the NGO, are also professionals in the cybersecurity field. The guy who is the head of the cybercrime unit within the Ministry of Interior, now the Agency for Security, Javor Kolev, prosecutors from the Supreme Cassation Prosecutor's Office, people from the businesses, and you will meet some of my colleagues throughout the guest lectures. The first person who you will meet is Boris Goncharov. He is a certified ethical hacker. He's a certified forensic expert, and I'm sure you'll be very. His lectures will be very, not lectures, discussions, because you'll have a lot of practice sessions with him. We will also meet again with me. I will show you open source cyber intelligence, what we use. It's pretty interesting, pretty cool tools that can be used for gathering information, matching information, etc. But not today. Today will be the introductory. And you will probably meet another colleague who is also a certified forensic expert and certified ethical hacker, who will come together with me and show you some techniques, how they are doing certain things. So that's about the academy. What we do trainings for law enforcement, for forensic experts. Right now in Sofia there is ongoing 2 weeks training with experts from the university in Dublin for law enforcement forensic experts, and it's 2 weeks advanced computer forensics. We do trainings for IT managers from the state administrations. We do for different businesses. Our partners are HP, Microsoft, and many others, Cisco. We also do public awareness campaigns. So I welcome all of you. This is our first meeting. I will leave you my business cards. If you have good ideas on how we can increase the internet culture, internet security culture among users, and when I say users, I also mean businesses, you're more than welcome to do something together, because our motto is internet safety first. So our public awareness campaigns, the biggest event we do is the law enforcement event. We gather law enforcement from all Southeast Europe, more than 20 countries, to come to Bulgaria, share modus operandi on how crime is happening. And we also do a lot of public lectures at schools. So now that you will become experts in forensics, and you are experts in security, I guess, you're more than welcome to contact me and to do some joint events in a variety of schools, or if any other ideas. I'm open to ideas, and I would welcome. During my talk, feel free to interrupt me, because I have two deficiencies. One is I talk too much, being a lawyer, so I talk a lot. And second one, I'm a woman, so women also talk a lot. So feel free to interrupt me. We'll not go through what the business models are, but the reason I've put this slide is because we live in a world where most of businesses have an online component. Some of the businesses are entirely built online. And the key ingredient for being successful is security and trust. But unfortunately, all the open source tools, all the techniques are available also for the bad guys. So what we will talk today is how the bad guys are attacking the online businesses. Internet creates anonymity. Do you believe in that? Yes, it does, in a way. Everything is a business case online, because you can go and hide your IP address and commit an attack towards a site or a person. And maybe the law enforcement would be able to trace that person down. But everything is a business case, and there must be proportionality between the efforts that will be put in investigating a case and the damage that the case is creating. The threats grow and the approaches change. Give me an example of what you consider to be most powerful attack this year. Or a powerful attack, not most powerful. What? The increase of malwares online, DDoS attack on someone, stealing of big data. Those are all things that are happening. One that is affecting, for example, the end users is the ransomware. You've heard about ransomware. But some of you had a ransomware on your computers? No. Ransomware actually is a malware that locks your computer. And usually it's a localized attack. So if you're based in Bulgaria, you will get a message. Your keyboard will be locked. You will get a message that will say, you've been searching and downloading illegal movies and music. Does someone do that? No, of course not. Nobody does that. And because of that, the investigation services are applying you a fine of 100 leva. So you hurry up, go and pay that fine. In most of the cases, the ransomware is not locking your computer, but and all you need to do is to restart or to turn it off. But there are some types of ransomware that really lock your computer and you can't do anything on it. Then it's not they're not asking you for 100 leva, they may ask you for 500. The key is don't do anything. Just turn the computer off if you can. Just unplug it, and then you are the experts, or search for a computer expert to help you. But that's one of the things that is happening now in the online world. Why? Because some years ago we will experience fraudsters or schemers attacking companies. Now they attack us, users, because companies invest in security and we don't, unfortunately. And that's why the easiest target for schemers are the end users. And one of the tendencies that we see this year is growing attacks on end users. The business's costs are calculated in billions. I don't know if you are reading security reports, but if you go to some of the vendors' reports or Mandiant report, or right now there is Checkpoint report released, pretty new, Symantec, McAfee's, they all analyze what are the costs of internet fraud. 41% of phishing attacks are targeting financial institutions. You know why? Because the money are there. There are three categories of attacks that we see in today's world. The first category of attacks are those who are done for a financial gain. Whatever they do, traditional phishing, dynamic phishing through the use of botnets, social engineering schemes, and a variety of that is growing. I personally believe that the future of the dark side of the internet is social engineering. You know who's the best social engineer ever? Till now. Kevin Mitnick. Kevin Mitnick was, he wrote a few books, maybe you've read some of them, but he's one of the best social engineers, and social engineering is used in every type of fraud. Money mules are used for moving the money. This is all done with one purpose only, financial gain. The other category of crime are those who are the hacktivists. They protest. They protest that your eyes are brown. They protest that you have a white shirt. They protest that they don't agree with a corporate regime. They don't agree with abortions being adopted in a particular country. They don't agree that we treat dogs bad. Usually it's a political, cultural protest, economical protest, and the tools that they use are the same. DDoS attack is nothing new on the horizon, but they become much more sophisticated. They use international traffic. It's difficult to deal with them. Plus, there is no legislation to investigate a DDoS attack because it's an international crime. I wouldn't go into the detail of that. Web defacement. The tools that they use are the same. What's driving them is they don't agree with the politics in a particular field. The most popular, of course, last year were the anonymous. Everybody can be anonymous online. And the third category are the cyber weapons. The most popular was Stuxnet, that was affecting the Iranian atomic powers and the SCADA systems used there. So the purpose of Stuxnet was to take them out of order, to stop them. And SCADA is used in electricity grids, in water pipes, and in critical information infrastructure all over the world. So what attackers are doing, they're producing such powerful weapons that can control your system online. They can affect you, they can watch you, they can steal all of your data. Some of the reports, for example, the Kaspersky report says that some of those cyber weapons are created by governments. There is no proof in that, but the truth is it's very difficult to create a cyber weapon. It cannot be done by one programmer or one coder. It has to be done by a team of people with huge investment. These are the different medias. It's not an intelligence test, but this is how we started to transmit to each other information throughout the years. Initially, it was only written messages, and when Boris will come and he will talk to you about cryptography, he will give you some really interesting examples from ancient times as well. But the only media through which we can transmit voice, written messages, videos, and everything, that's the internet. It's the media that unites everything. And there are two things about the internet that we need to remember. It's global network. You'll say, we know that. But the reason why I mention it is because everybody from everywhere is allowed to put whatever they like on a web. And then the second thing about it is that everybody has access to it. Last week I was contacted by journalists, and they were saying there is a very aggressive online game on the net. It's about terrorists killing police, and it's really violent. How is this possible to happen? Who is behind this? Internet creates anonymity. Everybody is free to do whatever they want. If it's illegal content, let's say like child pornography or anything else, then there are rules how that content can be taken down. This is an article that I like very much. It's from the 60s. And it says that there will be one day when our life will be safe because we will have computers. But one thing that will be different will be that there will be special cyber guards who will be guarding us because some of the smart guys will be trying to steal our electronic money because our money will not be anymore in our pockets, etc., etc. Well, that's not true nowadays. Our life is not much safer than it was in the 60s. And part of that are the technologies that make our life easier. They facilitate our life, but they also make the life of those who want to do bad things easier, and the impact they may have nowadays with only one click on the keyboard is enormous. What's this? Yeah. Typewriters. You know why I put this link here? Because at the time when we were using typewriters, the text written on every typewriter was registered within the police. So if there was fraud committed using a typewriter, a document fraud at that time, the text that is registered within the police would give information about what type of machine was used, what model, and it was helping law enforcement to investigate the case. What's this? The printer. The reason I put this is that when you print a paper, when you run a paper through a printer, and when forensic analysis is done, you will see that on the right corner of the paper there will be some yellow dots. Depending on how those dots are situated, that will provide information to the forensic expert on what type of printer that was and who's the producer, sufficient information. Why I'm giving you these two examples? Because we started about the two characteristics of the internet. When we talk about internet and new technologies, things are not that simple. Now the biggest challenges in the corporate world is the policy of bring your own device. Security experts, they joke. It's bring your own device because the company is cheap and not buying devices to their employees. That's not the case, of course. But it's a challenge. Now we access the internet from our mobile phone, from our iPad, from a computer in the office, at the university, at home. And the challenges that exist in front of the security experts are huge. That's not actually version, it's a translation of the people in my office. That's Web 1.0. Can you give me an example about the first virus ever created? Web 1.0, that's the first grade at the internet. You probably don't remember that time, but we were able only to send messages to one another. There was no video, no voice over the internet. Like in first grade, you read and write. That's what we were doing on the internet. And what was new at that time is that the traditional crime moved in a different environment, in an open environment where there are no guards. And then was created the first virus by two brothers who were doing coding, and they were working on how to protect some intellectual property products. And in the code, they even wrote their names, their address, the country they come from. Those are two Pakistani guys, and the name of the virus they created, that was not their goal, was called Brain. Now the question is, you know what is the similarity between Brain and Stuxnet? Brain is the first virus, probably very simple, and Stuxnet, cyber weapon nowadays. The similarity is in the way of replication. They were both uploaded through, we don't have a flash. One through a floppy disk, because at that time there's still some places in Bulgaria where floppy disks are used. I always say in trainings that that's in the past, but they're still in the National Revenue Service, believe it or not. They still use floppy disks. And Stuxnet, because the SCADA systems, they're not created in a network, and someone needed to upload that cyber weapon there for security reasons. And bless you. Having said that, we always say that the weakest point is the human factor. So when you talk about security and when you create your own company or when you work in a company, you should always be considering that the weakest point is the human factor. And there are always, no matter which type of the crimes we will look at now, there is always an insider providing information. There are insiders embedded in organization with one purpose only, to gather information. So Web 2.0, that's the interactive part of the net that we know nowadays. All the social media possibilities. What's the strangest thing you can do on the internet, you know? Many strange things, but one thing that just shocked me was that handicapped people who have problems with moving but are fascinated about hunting, they can control weapons and they can go hunting on the net, not in a game, but in the real world. Pretty strange to me. But at Web 2.0, at this variety of things that we could do on the net, we have pure net crimes, phishing, botnets, attacks against critical information infrastructure. I gave you a few examples of that. And in the examples, I'll give you more throughout our discussion, my discussion. So ask me questions, please. Is about these types of pure net crimes. And Web 3.0 is when our physical world, the world where we can touch each other, with the virtual world, unite. They probably say, what does it mean? Law enforcement officers, let's say Polizia di Stato in Italy, they have a virtual office. So if you want to go and file a complaint, you go through their virtual offices. The university where I teach a few years ago, we will select our students through Second Life, a few years ago. We had our island on Second Life. Each one of us had an avatar. No butterflies, no monsters, of course, but pretty. And because the students are coming from all over the world, we were doing interview on Second Life. The university paid for our island. It resembled the conference room as it is in real life, and everybody will fly with their avatar, and we will do the interview. Second Life was pretty cool some years ago to be used for online training. IBM used it first for online training. They changed ownership, so now it's not that cool. But some other strange things you can do on Second Life now that we are on this. You have your own currency in Second Life, the so-called Linden dollars. So let's say you go on Second Life, you register your avatar, then you could produce shoes, and you can sell those shoes to other users. And in that way, you will make your own Linden dollar that you need in order to create your house, to buy furniture. You can put real-time money in Second Life that will be transferred in Linden dollars, and then you can take those Linden dollars and sell them to somebody else, to some other players. It is very much used by money launderers to launder money, as other virtual worlds are. But Second Life is just one virtual world. There is the European agency, it's called ENISA. I'm not sure if I remember exactly the abbreviation, but you can check it, enisa.eu. European Network on Information Security Agency. Wow. What was that? Can you repeat it? No, I'm just kidding. But the reason why I'm telling you that, there is an analysis of all the virtual worlds. There are hundreds of virtual worlds. Virtual world is where kids are dressing Barbies or feeding fish or anything. The danger part in the virtual world is that you could put real-time money, and that's why the virtual worlds are used by cyber criminals. You can put your money that you take your credit card or your cash in some of those virtual worlds, and that's what makes it dangerous. But we'll talk more about that. So one of the strangest crimes on Second Life, for example, think just strange, weird, rape. Now you think, but how can you perform a rape in a virtual world? There is even a book written by a Belgian writer, Julien Dibel, about rape in virtual world. Not that I suggest it as a reading, but just how far human, and that's usually with injecting a code in the game. That's how it's done. There is in Hong Kong, for example, special police that investigates only crime in virtual worlds. So the few examples that I've given you show that in reality our physical world with the virtual world, they unite. Now we are doing a training, for example, for prosecutors from Supreme Cassation Prosecution Office only on virtual worlds, because they say we have cases and we have issues with Bitcoin. I don't know if you use Bitcoins, but it's great invention, and I think we should have more inventions like that, because that's what internet is all about, new opportunities. But it's also used by the bad guys to send money. So these are some pictures. Something else about Web 2.0. Can you give me an example of a dark market? Because yes, Carter Planet. Yes, yes. For example, about Carter Planet, it was like Napster at older times. Everything was concentrated on one place, controlled by a team of people or one person. You have people from Ukraine here. Do we have someone from Ukraine? The reason why I'm asking is because it was controlled. It was the biggest dark market and was controlled by a Ukrainian guy, Dmitry Golubyov. You can even check it on the internet. It was taken down some years ago by international operation. And guess what Dmitry Golubyov is doing nowadays?
Head of security somewhere?
No. Politician. He registered his internet party. It's pretty cool. He's finding a niche. What's the difference between Carter Planet, that was concentrated on one server somewhere, controlled by one person? There you could find stolen credit cards, stolen eBay accounts, instructions how to configure a bot, whatever. The difference between that and the nowadays dark worlds is that now you have to be vouched to become member of a dark market. Some of those dark markets are not anymore in English language, they're in Chinese and Russian language, because it's much more difficult for companies and law enforcement to infiltrate their own people. When I work, for example, at eBay, we had a team of people from InfoSec who will infiltrate in dark markets in order to know what is sold, where the eBay bugs, and how can we fix them. And being infiltrated in one of the dark markets at that time, we found a guy whose name was Vlad Duiculescu. Do we have people from Romania? No? No. It's too sad. I'll try to think about other countries. Where are you from, beside Bulgaria? Russia. I'll think about some of those markets now, and some of the virtual currencies also are in Russian language. So Vlad Duiculescu was a very smart guy. We found him at the age of 16 when he developed a rootkit. And that rootkit was for dynamic phishing on eBay. And what he did, he sold that rootkit to different organized crime groups within Romania, and they were attacking eBay. And there is a zone, you can look on the internet, there is a region in Romania, Râmnicu Vâlcea, Drăgășani, they're called Hackerville, because all the young people there, they do fraud. When I started my work at eBay, we were in Bucharest, and together with FBI and Secret Services, walking on the street, and my colleagues, and that was the time of internet cafes. So we would walk into an internet cafe, and every internet cafe you'll see the eBay screen and people doing fraud on eBay. So It's new nowadays, and what is new is that they use the peer-to-peer networks, the Tor network, and it's impossible to trace down, because tracing someone down is done in two ways. In real life, but fraudsters, they don't have working time from 9 to 6. They work at night. So, and internet service providers, because you need to work with the internet service provider to trace a person, they don't have 24/7 units. So it's extremely difficult to do a real-time tracing of a person. Then the other option is to do the trace through information that the internet service provider will give you. But just think, when you go through few countries, how much time it will take to the law enforcement officer investigating a case to obtain the information from the different service providers. Mission impossible. So at the end of the day, that's what we see. We have the dark side, and the guys who use the technologies in the internet to commit fraud. Do you have any questions? I will give you this, these are two funny videos about online profiling, because now everything is data. And we all use Facebook. I saw even some of you surfing on Facebook. I also use Facebook, and but none of the security guys does. You see, stupid lawyers we do, but the security guys, Bobby and Bobby, that's their names, Boris and Borislav, they don't use WhatsApp, they don't use Viber. Why? Because they gather information about us, what we do, who are our friends, and information is money. We have online profiling. So if you go one day and search for your mom to buy her a trip for retired people, and next day you go online to seek for a vacation for you with your girlfriend, you will get advertisements on the right-hand side based on your previous behavior. So, but that's the world we live in, and everything is, and these are some funny videos that you will look. Initial observation. They're not anymore initial because I'm talking for, wow, the time goes so fast, for a long time. But why 1997, you know? That was the time when internet started to be used for commercial purposes. Most of the online businesses already took up. This was the time where companies like eBay and others, I use eBay because I work for them, that's why, not that I am fond of, were created. And now I can give you an example. You know how eBay was created, talking about 1997? Exactly. The guy was, he was passionate about Macintosh, and he wanted to create a platform where people could share things among themselves, because his wife was collecting pets toys. I don't know if you remember those pets toys that are in the shape of different animals, and you put inside them different candies, and then you open them like that. So his wife was collecting pet toys, and he was thinking, if I create a platform where people would be able to share information among themselves, maybe that will help her enrich her collection. And he started by putting some old cables and stuff on the internet. And all of a sudden, it exploded. People, collectors, found out about this and started to share information. But that was the old time when there was trust on the internet. Nowadays, we live in a completely different world. And this guy, because there were so many users, one day he couldn't manage this anymore, so he needed to hire people to manage the site. So he included a tax. So everyone who puts something for sale on eBay, he will charge them $1, and they will need to put that $1 in an envelope and mail it to him. And at some point he had a room full of envelopes, and he hired people whose job was only to open the envelopes and take that $1 bill and stack it. This is how it started. But I am telling you this to show what trust there was on the net at that time. Nowadays is not like that. We went through a period, and we are still undergoing through that period, when the online businesses, they will never talk about fraud. One example, Mr. Pisanchev, who is the head of the National Security Agency of Bulgaria, at the conference last week, 2 weeks ago now, in Sofia says, the financial institutions in Bulgaria have no issues. Everything is under control. And he says that at the time when a bunch of banks, I'm not going to say who those banks are experiencing withdrawals of money that they cannot control to some interesting locations. And he stands up in front of everybody and says, there are no problems at all. There are problems. And even though there is already a dialogue, nobody talks about that. Why? Because it's going to affect the image of the company. Now I have a deal with one of these banks to train their risk officer, customer officer, the ones who are dealing with us, with the end users. When we go to the bank and they meet us, and they're so cheap, they don't want to invest in security. They would like us to travel to 7 different locations for free, or to pay us for 1 hour. The reason why I'm sharing this with you is to show how immature we still are when it comes to security. We are extremely happy to buy the best technology ever, but we are not investing in people. And as I said at the beginning, you are as secure as your weakest link is, and your weakest node is are the people, because they're the ones through where information can be obtained. This is a bit more lawyer talk. What's the same? Crime doesn't change at all. It only has a new environment where there is no control. Who are the players on the internet? So we have once a non-governmental organization, ICANN. I don't know how non-governmental it is, but it's a non-governmental organization that is doing the international governance of the internet, policy governance of the internet. Otherwise, we have net neutrality. And then we have the providers, those through whom we obtain domains, and those through whom we obtain connection, being those service providers or access providers. So they are, and then it's all of us. There is a hot debate right now at the European level about responsibilities of internet service providers and internet access providers. What is eBay? Service provider or access provider? access provider. Internet service provider would be the provider of your connection at home. The debate about responsibility is what kind of data they will collect about us. And there is a new bill passed in Holland now, giving opportunities to their law enforcement to do surveillance on all traffic on the internet and to be able to hack into a foreign country's computer if they consider that that IP address is used for fraud. That's pretty dangerous. What is the control mechanism? Imagine that in Bulgaria. Just imagine that in a country like Bulgaria. I have concerns about Holland as well, because I don't think that should happen, because we are not fraudsters on the internet and we are free to do whatever we decide. So we live in a very different world where crime has moved online. Investigative techniques don't change because the information online is so volatile. It changes all the time. So when you investigate a crime, you use the traditional techniques. One of them is follow the money. But with Bitcoin, who do you follow? No one. There is no sender, there is no receiver. So there is no central authority. So what do you follow? You follow some other traditional tools, procedures. We can master it. Yeah, I always say that we can master it. I say that in front of lawyers. Because when you go and talk to judges, for example, they will ask you, don't tell me all this blah blah. Let me know what are you going to bring me on paper. Imagine a malicious code on paper. How does that look like? We live in an online world where the worlds unite, but we also live in a paper world. And there is such a discrepancy between the opportunities technologies give us and the judicial systems we live in. It's the criminal law is so formal. And there are reasons why it is formalized, but it's so formal, and I promise you I will not talk about law, sorry. Just throw a pen on me. Now a little joke. I met with a judge from Austria some years ago, and I asked him, Judge, how could you sit through all these hearings, you know, and it's so monotonous and like that, and how do you stay awake? He said, listen, I have a trick. I sit down, I put the pen between my fingers, and I do like this. And he has also glasses, so I should put my glasses. And then when I fall asleep, my pen drops, and it wakes me up. And then I stand, I fix my glasses and continue listening. Take my pen, I do it again. So take a pen and throw it on me if I talk about law. These are not empty words, because still in corporate world, there is no clear focus. There is no accountability. That's why I gave you the example with this bank now. You have issues. The security people tell you what your problem is, but you consider security as an expense. And we will go to conference, we'll hear. It's integrated in our culture. Security is our values, blah, blah. It's still a world where business people, they don't want to invest in security. They may buy good equipment, softwares, but not in the in people. Be aggressive and keep it. So never give up. The approach towards cybercrime is, we have the old crimes, the traditional crimes, the theft, but that theft is committed, or a rape, and rape is committed in a virtual world. And we have new crimes, like the bots, that are done with some new tools. We also have new ways of networking among each other and sharing information. Don't look at the statistics, but I want to give you two agencies that are very important. One is IC3. It's Internet Cybercrime Complaint Center. It's part of the FBI in the United States, and it's the only center that gathers information about victims online. I've downloaded also their report, but I will give you the links, so I don't want you to go through these statistics. What is important here to look is that the number of victims is going. This is an older slide, so that's why I don't want to go through. And the other organization I would like to draw your attention is the Anti-Phishing Working Group. The Anti-Phishing Working Group is a non-governmental organization, and they do reports about phishing. You know what is smishing or vishing? These are variety of phishing. So we will go, the first example we will look at is traditional phishing, but nowadays phishing is done through this. Through your phone. You receive an SMS. They call it smishing. There are lots of free tools that can be downloaded online, and they can be used like bots for mobile phones. You can even control a bot network through a phone. You don't need any more IRC chat room for that. You can do it through a phone. So in the Anti-Phishing Working Group reports, you will find there is a lot of interesting material about the trends online, etc. So which one was the one that robbed me? The time when I first time heard about what is phishing was years ago. And it was a person actually from eBay at a conference at Interpol. He did a presentation and he was talking about phishing. That was the first time I heard about that, a long time ago. And I thought, what is this? It's creating a website that looks exactly as the website of the company or the institution you want to fake. You use that fake site in order to make the users of that site give you their credentials. And we will see how this is done. Oops. How to create anonymity online? I don't need to tell you that. You probably know that very well. It's so easy. There's so many free tools that could be used online. What's new in online investing? Oops. I think, no, it's from here. I think it's from here, yes. Yeah, I moved this.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I moved this, that's why. I'm sorry. One thing that is new is that encryption nowadays is used by the bad guys. They didn't do that years ago, but now every device you get will be encrypted. Do you use encryption? Yeah, good. I just came from a conference in Romania, and it was on cybersecurity, different people from the region. in the room where were all the IT people, there were different vendors. Somebody was asked the question, do you use encryption? Everybody raised their hands. In another room where I had lawyers and I was moderator of a session, I decided to ask the question, do you use encryption? No hands. So that's localizing where an attack comes from. That's something I want to say. This guy Vladuț that I talked to you about, Vladu Iculescu, he was using Zap Mobile. Zap Mobile was a service of one of the internet service providers, was a mobile internet. So we identified, but it was a free service, so it was impossible to know who is behind that. So using that, we would see a certain IP addresses from Zap Mobile on the eBay site all the time, and we would want to know who is behind that. So together with law enforcement, we file a complaint in Romania. With the IPs, we say, we detect some illegal activities, please file a case on that. Nothing happens. Zap Mobile was the ownership of RDS, that was the biggest internet service provider in Romania. So what happened, I went to negotiate with their lawyers. Table of 10 people and me, together with law enforcement and prosecutor from Romania, to tell them, you guys need to do something with your services because they're used only by fraudsters. And these are the IPs, and it was detected a large list that are used only for fraud. So by the time I go to the meeting, I receive a phone call by my boss, and he said, we block RDS on all our 3 services. Our 3 services at that time were PayPal, eBay, and Skype. You're technical people, could you do that? Yeah, you'll block some, you block the IPs, but if I'm a fraudster, I will go through a proxy server and I will bypass this block. But by blocking that, you do a negative PR to the service provider, which is RDS. So I sat there with the lawyers and I said, I have bad news for you guys, we blocked you. They were ready to kill me. Anyway, with the technical people, we made an agreement that they will take down, they will monitor. Because we were talking about localizing, they helped us localize Vladuț, where he was. And it was hand in hand with the service provider, otherwise you wouldn't be able. But I started by saying, talking about anonymity online, I said that everything is a business case. We went and put the effort as a company to go after Vladuț because he caused 8 million loss to the company. Because of that rootkit sent, and it's not direct loss to eBay, it's to eBay users, but it's direct cost to the company. Because if you have bad experience on one side, will you go back on that side? No. You have variety of services to use. So that's why we invested money to go build relationships with Zap Mobile and with RDS, etc. Otherwise, you don't do that. And law enforcement, they don't have the capacity. One example also on localizing, the ISPs, they were able to do triangulation only in 1 square kilometer in Bucharest at that time. 1 square kilometer in a city, in a big city, how much law enforcement resources would you need to check every single person there? Huge. So that's why localizing and tracing is a business case. Business case, no matter if it comes from the law enforcement have some pictures. These pictures are taken from the FBI website. These are all guys who committed fraud, because we were talking about 3 categories of crimes. This is taken in 2006 in this town, Râmnicu Vâlcea, that I'm giving you examples. And these were the cars of those guys during that time. I would go with Secret Service to work with the prosecutor on a case, and they will challenge us. They will say, you think you could catch up? Well, Vlăduț was caught, and some of these organized groups, more than 30 kids, very young, 16, 18, 19. My daughter is 18 now, so when I think about that, but they were doing bad things. Why they do it? For lots of money. Last week at this conference I was shown one video. I will show it to you next time. And it is about one of these fraud types. I will not talk about it now. So the 3 business platforms that I will give you examples of fraud. I think we have only 10 minutes.
About 10 minutes, yeah.
So we will not be able to cover it all. So do you use eBay nowadays? Oops, I'm sorry. I keep clicking on this. So you know how to use it. You go to the search, you choose what you want, you get the results. This is an example of Joe Sullivan. Joe Sullivan now is the CSO of Facebook. He was my previous boss at eBay before. So he would sell his old jeans on eBay, just to gain eBay experience and to see how easy it is to sell things. But if you save some money, you could also buy not the old jeans of someone, but you could buy a plane for. So how the transaction goes? The transaction has 2 parts. One part is the online component, when everything is online, and eBay or any other online auction or any other online shop can monitor. But there is also another component. When the seller and the buyer meet themselves, the seller sends the money, then the buyer sends the money to the seller. That portion of the transaction is offline. And what happens, what the fraudsters do, they say, send me the money through Western Union. So let's see. So after you have a transaction, you give a feedback, if it was positive or negative. Can you guess what this says? This is because we said that internet is a world where everybody can put whatever they like. There is no filtering on the internet. But there are some places, like online shops and some others, I wouldn't get into details, where there is filtering done. These are the names of marijuana. More than 100,000 different ways of saying it, used by people who want to overpass the filters on eBay and say dope on the site. And when working with law enforcement, we would go collect those and then work with the filter people, and they will include that into the filtering system of eBay. When it comes to financial types, they use few techniques. One is the traditional phishing. They move the money with the work at home scheme, and they invent also escrow fraud. Do you use escrow sites? Escrow is an intermediary. If you buy, let's say, a car or anything that is of value over $500 US, you are suggested to use an intermediary. Because when you shop online, first thing you do, you send the money to the person from whom you buy. And then they send you the good. But if you purchase something which is of high value, you send the money, but they are not gone immediately to the seller. They stay within the escrow service until you receive the goods. And if it is as it was described, you say okay, and only then the escrow service sends the money. So what the bad guys do, they create a fake escrow. And they can cheat both the buyer and the seller. So traditional phishing, I don't know if in the forensic class you will go through phishing sites, but maybe we can construct one together. I don't know if it's part of the and then go. I will ask my colleagues. So how it's done? You find the phishing site. We can do a phishing on my site, on the Crime Academy, because we need to be authorized. Otherwise, what's the difference between a black hacker and an ethical hacker? You already know that because you're in forensics. The authorization, you need to have a contract, and you need to have a clear methodology what you do and follow those steps. If you do something else which you're not authorized, you will be sued. There is one of the top security experts in prison in the United States because he saw a hole, a bug, in a popular company, and he wrote a report. He gave them the report, and he said, hey, I saw you have this and these bugs, and they sued him. And they sued him because he was not authorized to. Nowadays we have bug hunters. You know what that is? Yeah, you've talked about that. Okay. But some years ago that was not authorized. So you find the site you want to construct, and you change the source code, and then you save it, and you have a site created. It's not that simplistic and that easy. And then what you need to do is you need to find a free web hosting service that will host your phishing site. And there are many of them because the internet service providers provide that. And then after you put it online, the next thing you want to do is you want to send it to as many people as you want to visit your site. You create a text coming from the billing department, including the link of the fake site, all rights reserved, and usually has an element, a threat element. If you don't send me your username and passwords because I'm changing the system, blah, blah, whatever, you will lose your account. They're so inventive nowadays that they do that for the National Revenue Services, and when it comes to money, people are pretty sensitive. So even nowadays this works. This is the same method used by also Nigerian schemers. Always an element of threat. They send it to as many people, and then those people who click on the link, they type the username and password, and that immediately sent to the bad guys. So in that way, they collect many usernames and passwords, and they can even go themselves to the website that they phished and use the username or password, or sell that information to a bad guy, to another bad guy, and they can do it themselves. Then comes the account theft. With the stolen credentials, they get on the website. Something is wrong with the... They look at the feedback, they change the password and the email, and they have full control over the account that they've stolen. And then the next thing they do, they put something on sale that's non-existent. And then they use social engineering skills to convince potential victims to buy. I have a plasma for $100 because I'm closing stock in my shop. and I want to sell it. So instead of one, I will give you 10 TVs because, and I will make you a discount. I will not sell them to you for 100, I will sell them for 85. And we people, unfortunately, think that's the deal I'll make. I'll buy the all 10 and then I'll sell them for 1,000 each and I'll make money. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. I think our time is gone. Usually the money are sent through Western Union and MoneyGram. And I'll stop here because the time has gone. But if you have any questions, I will give you my contact details. You can contact me. Oops. And unfortunately, we didn't have the time to go through all of this because we were supposed to talk about dynamic phishing and botnets. But what I will do is next time when I come with my colleague and we talk about open source, we demonstrate open source intelligence, we will show probably little bot or configuring source codes. We'll see in order to cover that part which we didn't have the time this time. So that's from me. If you have questions. Tired.
Any questions?
It is recommended, but cannot be used exclusively because then you are partitioning the market and you are not giving opportunities. It's against the free and open market rules. So there was a case in Australia against eBay for recommending PayPal as a payment system because they said, in that way, you limit the choice of a person, what service to use, and you're monopolizing the market by providing your services only. So yes, you are right in saying that if you use PayPal as a payment system, you have, as a buyer, up to 500. I don't know, maybe now changed. I don't monitor it, but if you suffer, if you're a victim of crime, they will reimburse you. But what I would say, never use Western Union or MoneyGram for online payments. Use whatever online payment system you like, but never use Money Union and MoneyGram because you don't know to whom you send the money. It's like going in a shop, buying a t-shirt from the shop, but going behind the corner and paying to someone you meet on the street. It's the same thing with Money Union. It's perfect when you send money to your friend because you know each other, or to your sister, your brother, but not to somebody you don't know. Because there was the saying, everyone on the internet is a dog, every dog is a woman, I don't remember it now. So you can be whatever you want on the internet. So, other questions? No questions. Lunchtime. You have a question?
You mentioned something about Iran or their nuclear plants.
Yes. Stuxnet. Stuxnet is a cyber weapon. It's malicious code that was created. And in the Iranian nuclear stations, they use SCADA systems. SCADA systems are operated by Siemens. And they use them in, how's that called? Центрофуги за обогатяване с уран. They use them in... They use them in part of the system that is, let's say, it's not filtering. That's working enriching the uranium, and they use the SCADA. It's an operating system to manage that process. So by infecting with Stuxnet, it crashed them. So they stopped working, yes.
So did they deposit it from within the facility?
Within, yes, because the SCADA systems, they're never connected to a network. Because once you are in a network, you're vulnerable, you know that. So those systems are never, and that's why they had someone to plug it in there. There is very interesting analysis on Stuxnet that you can look at TED.com. When you type Stuxnet, it's really interesting. It's an analysis on the whole cyber weapon that is used. But nowadays, Stuxnet is not considered to be the most dangerous. There are other tools that are even more dangerous because through them they can have distance control on everything on your computer. Turn on the camera and steal all of your information, etc. It was my pleasure. I hope this was interesting to you, and I'm looking forward to meet you again with my colleagues. Next time you will meet with Boris Goncharov. I'm thinking about now something to tell you about him that you can surprise him, but I can't think. I will let you know. So you will surprise him next time. Next time he comes. He's one of the top security experts. He works for G4S at the moment, but he also does lots of trainings. He does the trainings on forensic experts in Bulgaria and on ethical hackers, so you will really enjoy him. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Albena.
This program is brought to you by AUBGTalks. For more, please visit us at aubg.edu/talks.